Hello and welcome to the latest in a series of briefings from Kuits solicitors in Manchester. I'm Robert Levy, the executive partner at Kuits, and I'm joined today by Claire Meyers, who is a partner in our litigation team. Hello, Claire.
Hi.
Claire, you've been very involved in the business interruption insurance problems being encountered by some clients. I want to go back to March, when first guidance and then restrictions were introduced, which forced many people to close down their businesses. And when they did, one of the first things they did was look to their insurance policies, which had business interruption cover. But it wasn't that simple, was it?
No, like you say, it affected the hospitality industry in particular, who had to completely close doors. The policies, they had two main heads of cover. There were notifiable diseases and denial of access. In both cases, the insurers, at least from our experience, refused to pay out.
And when they did, I'm assuming that they looked to very technical interpretations of their policy wording. What were the broad themes of the objections?
Yeah, so both these heads of cover, the diseases and the denial of access, tended to include a radius condition. So it said, for example, there had to be an occurrence of a disease within 25-mile radius of the premises. The insurer's argument was that that meant that the business interruption, which resulted from the lockdown, had to be the result of a specific incidence of a disease within that 25-mile radius, and it couldn't be the result of a pandemic across the entire country.
So that was the radius condition. Were there other types of condition?
It was, I mean, the main point of argument was to do with the radius.
And obviously insureds didn't want to take this lying down, so they started to push back, and that led to a test case, didn't it, brought by the Financial Conduct Authority. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yep, so the FCA, acting on behalf of the insureds, brought this test case before the High Court back in June, I think it was, and the decision was handed down last Tuesday. So the FCA brought the action against 8 insurers, and there were 21 policies that were considered as part of the action.
And presumably all with different wording. What was the broad thrust of the decision?
So the court looked at the two clauses in question, the notifiable diseases and the denial of access. In the notifiable diseases case, the court broadly went along with the FCA and said that you didn't need a specific incidence of a notifiable disease within the radius, and that a pandemic across the country was sufficient, and that most insureds were covered. They took a slightly stricter view of the denial of access in that case. Quite often it had a smaller radius, so for example it referred to an occurrence within 1 mile of the premises. And the court found that in that case, you did need something more localised rather than a pandemic. So they sided with the insurers on that basis.
And so where does that leave, on the one hand, insureds with the insurance companies who were cited in the test case? And on the other hand, where does it leave insureds with insurance companies who were not?
Yeah, so they looked at 21 policies in total. These all had different wording, but there were similar themes. So the court's decision is guidance, and it's going to very much depend on the specific wording in each case. So in each case, you're going to have to look at the terms of your policy and then apply the court's guidance to it. So this isn't, I mean, it's not a binding decision against all insurers. It is guidance only. And unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be the end of the matter, because it's open to both parties to now appeal. So the FCA can appeal on parts that they lost on. Likewise, the insurers, I expect, are going to appeal on the parts they lost on. And if an appeal does go ahead, they're going to leapfrog the Court of Appeal and will go straight to the Supreme Court, who will then give a final decision.
And so does this mean that insureds are stuck with playing a waiting game, or is there anything that proactive that they can be doing in the meantime?
So certainly if they haven't already, they need to lodge their claims, because there's quite often strict time limits in which you've got to lodge your insurance claim. The FCA did tell insurers that they should be contacting affected policyholders within 7 days of the decision. So pretty much this week they should be contacting those who are likely to have a claim based on the High Court's current decision.
And in terms of the clients that you're representing, I presume up until this point they've been awaiting the outcome of the test case in the hope that that would give them more clarity of their position. Now that they've had the result, and now that we know it's potentially subject to appeal to the Supreme Court, which presumably will push it well into next year, I would have thought. What are they doing? Are they still sitting on their hands, or are they having to do something more proactive?
I mean, there are steps they can take. Like I say, make sure you've got your claim in. We've been lodging formal letters before action to the insurers, basically saying we want payout under this. But in all instances, the insurers have been coming back. First of all, they were waiting for this High Court decision. And now I expect when we follow through, they're going to come back and say they're now going to appeal. And now it's going to be a waiting game until we get the decision of the Supreme Court.
So if clients want more information in relation to their particular policies, or they want your take on how the test case affects them, how likely they are to succeed anyway, which is probably very important for business planning, I'm assuming that's something you're happy to do.
Yeah, there are general rules you can take from the High Court decision, and we can apply those to policies. I certainly give a view as to whether we think it's likely to succeed based on the position as it currently stands.
And presumably help guide the insureds in terms of what steps they take to progress those claims and when.
Yeah.
So your details are going to come up at the end of this short briefing. Obviously, there's quite a lot of interpretation of technical wording, but I also guess that many times you're looking at policies that you've seen either the same policy or a very similar policy before.
Yeah, pretty much all the policies we've looked at do have very, very similar wording. Of the policies that the court reviewed, it tended to turn on specific wording, such as, did it say in consequence of, did it say as a result of, did it say following? And they found different decision based on the wording used. But it is the same wording comes up time and time again. And we do now have guidance from the court as to how those specific words are likely to be interpreted.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Claire. I appreciate it. Your details, as I say, are going to come up at the end, and I would encourage anybody watching this who wants to understand their own position better to contact you in due course. So thank you for that very full explanation of a complicated area, and thank you everyone for watching. I hope you found it helpful.